Hi guys, so the other video was kind of long as it was, so I decided to do a second short video with a few more quick updates. That was all very, very positive, that video, and how much progress I've made, etc., etc. So I just wanted to throw in a couple things here maybe not so positive. I'm now officially a migraine sufferer. As far as I know, I've had two. When I saw my pain specialist in May, I see a pain specialist is a subspecialized neurologist. And when I saw him, I described to him a headache I'd had that went down the sides and also made me nauseous, but it went away with Advil. And he said like 99.9% that's a migraine. That's how migraines start. And then last week I had a really bad one. With like the whole right half of my face, top right half of my head, right side of my head and face, all hurt, all was throbbing. The epicenter though was behind my eye, and when I used that phrase to my mom, that I felt like it was behind my eye, she goes, "That's a migraine." She has a severe migraine problem, so I'm hopeful my problem stays mild because she suffers, and I thought that was one thing I managed not to inherit. I've already got everything else in my family. I don't need migraines. Unfortunately, here they are. I've overcome everything else that's been thrown at me, and I will overcome this. And I've also received the diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and I don't think that's new. I think it's always been there, but I think it's worse now because I had C. difficile. C. difficile is an antibiotic-resistant infection. I went to a doctor. I was looking for a new family doctor, and my stepdad recommended his. And let's just say I'm not impressed with her in any way, shape, or form. When I told her I'd been having like a sinus headache type pain across my forehead for months, she said, "You have a sinus infection," and gave me these giant antibiotics. And I got C. difficile. I never went back to that doctor. I found another doctor that I actually like and who knows what she's doing. But after the C. diff, they put me on medication for the C. diff, and I finished the course of medication and I still had symptoms. So they sent me they had me do another test, stool sample. Came back negative. C. diff causes severe diarrhea. By the way, if you're not familiar with it, that's the main manifestation. I actually lost like 5 pounds. Unfortunately, most of those came back, but that's how bad the diarrhea was. But the diarrhea was still there, but I had no C. diff. So the doctor said, "You have IBS. This is an IBS flare up." And it hasn't really flared down yet, unfortunately. It's been a couple months now. I'm taking a probiotic, which is not cheap, and I'm glad I'm not broke because no one's gonna help me pay for that. But it's working. It's helping a lot. It's not 100%. Still some foods I have to avoid. Maybe I always will. But just like everything else that has been thrown at me, I'll take this. I'll cope with this too. Um, was there anything else? Yes, there was one more thing. I wanted to throw out a couple future topics. I don't know if I'm going to do videos on these or not. I would like to hear people's opinions. So one thing is domestic violence. I'm a witness to domestic violence. Technically, you could say I'm a survivor, although I don't like calling myself a survivor because what I went through was so minor compared to some stories I've heard. Like, I love true crime shows, and often domestic violence is a factor. And you hear these horrible stories, and you think, well, I went through nothing. So I have a hard time calling myself a survivor, although I do still carry around a lot of emotions all these years later. I'm just realizing recently how much I have shoved down because I got a referral to a medical marijuana clinic, and when I was talking to them on the phone and I gave my last name, my dad's first name popped up, and I'm going, "Oh crap, he goes to that clinic. He has a severe herniated disc sciatica deal, so I know he's legit in pain." And I got so anxious. I went for the appointment and I got so anxious I walked out of the waiting room. Didn't go through with the appointment. So I'm working with a counselor now on the feelings I'm shoving down. And I've never talked about this in my videos because, I mean, it's definitely part of who I am. Your life experience shapes you. but I don't exist in a vacuum, and I don't know that I want to drag other family members' stories into these videos. So I haven't really talked about the domestic violence situation. So I don't know if people would want to hear about that or not, what people think. And the other thing is sort of, I would call it dealing with the system. You almost need a degree to navigate the system, to find services, and there are giant gaps. Some things that I think should be covered that aren't. Um, and but again, I don't know if I should discuss that or not because it's so specific to where I live. Like I know other places with universal health care, for example, the government does cover some dentistry. Mine does not. I have a missing tooth because I had no benefits and tried to ignore a cavity, and now I called $1,200 hole in my mouth because there was fillings and root canals, and they tried to save this tooth, and they ended up pulling the damn thing. And I have many, many other stories of the system, in my words, failing, either not covering things or just how aggravating it is to navigate. But this is so specific to me and where I live that it may not be of interest to someone watching me in Australia. So if again you'd like to hear my woes, my grievances with the system, that's definitely something I could do a video on. I'm just gonna throw that out there. If people are interested in hearing my domestic violence story, or my issues with the system, and there's actually a little bit of crossover between those two. I think the system failed our family a little. So I'll leave that to you guys if you and I might decide on my own whether or not I want to go ahead with the video. Um, or I should say those videos. I think I'm gonna leave that there. Thank you.